LeBron James is reportedly joining the Miami Heat, and Stephen Curry isn't, staying quiet about it. After weeks of speculation, the Warriors star has finally reacted to the move, and his comments are getting plenty of attention. Let me break it down. Stephen Curry is standing on a golf course in Lake Tahoe, cameras pointed at him, and the only question anyone wants answered has nothing to do with golf. It's about LeBron James. Specifically, it's about whether James is about to end up in a Miami Heat uniform. Here's where things stand. James recently told the Los Angeles Lakers he's done there. LeBron James recently informed the Los Angeles Lakers that he wouldn't be returning to play for them in the 2026-27 season, closing out a run. That included a title and an NBA Cup. That's it. 8 seasons over. And once that news broke, the entire league turned its attention to one question. Where does the NBA's all-time leading scorer go next? Miami answered that question for themselves before James even made a decision. The Heat pulled off a blockbuster this summer, and the Miami Heat were able to pull off a blockbuster trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo this summer, instantly making them one of the scariest teams in the East. Then, at Giannis's introductory press conference, Heat president Pat Riley didn't even try to hide what came next. He said the team needs another plane to land. Everyone in the building knew who he meant. Now here's where Curry comes in, because this isn't a story he's watching from a distance. Curry wants James in Golden State. He's been saying so out loud for weeks. So when reporters ask him about Miami's momentum, they're not asking a neutral bystander. They're asking a man actively trying to beat the Heat to the punch. Curry's answer when he finally gave it wasn't a dodge. He acknowledged it point blank. Curry acknowledged the appeal of a late career Hall of Fame team-up with his longtime NBA rival. He talked about the idea being unthinkable a few years ago, calling it part of the pull of the whole situation. He said James heading into his 24th season and Curry into his 18th would be a story unlike anything else in the sport, then added, it's still too early to get ahead of it. But Curry wasn't the only person with something to say. Giannis Antetokounmpo, now wearing a Heat jersey himself, has made his preference clear too. According to Shams Charania, Giannis Antetokounmpo wants LeBron James to join the Heat. Charania laid out exactly why Pat Riley is a draw, Eric Spoelstra is a draw, and there's no lingering tension between James and Riley that would scare him off. Giannis wanting him there only adds another voice pulling in Miami's direction. And then there's Draymond Green, Curry's own teammate, and someone with a real relationship with James. Green didn't just talk, he acted. He gave up real money to make room for this exact scenario, and league sources confirmed. Something else too, Curry and James have talked in the last week, mostly through text message. Green, meanwhile, was photographed vacationing with James in Puerto Rico, spotted on a golf course with him the same week Curry was fielding questions about it 3,000 miles away. So you've got Curry hoping, Giannis pulling in the opposite direction, Green working the angle from the inside. 3 separate voices, 3 separate stakes in how this ends. And on top of all of it, you've got the insiders, Brian Windhorst, Shams Charania, Mark Stein, all reporting the Heat as one of 2 or 3 teams that actually have a real shot. That's the shape of the story right now. James hasn't decided, but Miami has already made its move. Curry has already made his feelings known, and everyone around the league is trying to read the tea leaves before James picks up the phone and ends the guessing game for good. To understand why this decision carries so much weight, you have to go back to where James has actually been and where Miami fits into that story already. James spent 8 seasons with the Lakers this time around. During his time in Los Angeles, he averaged 25.9 points, 7.9 assists, and 7.7 rebounds across 479 regular season games, while leading the Lakers to the 2020 NBA championship. That's not a short stint. That's a near decade of his career, capped with a ring during the bubble season and closed out on his own terms this summer. But the Lakers were never the whole story. Prior to Los Angeles, James spent 11 seasons with Cleveland across 2 separate stints. And sandwiched right in the middle of those 2 Cleveland runs sits a 4-year tenure with the Miami Heat. That stretch is the reason this current rumor carries so much more than a normal free agency subplot. James has already done this exact thing in Miami before. He knows the building, he knows the fan base. He knows Pat Riley for better or worse, and he knows what a South Beach super team looks like from the inside because he built one there over a decade ago. That history is exactly why Miami didn't sit back and wait passively this summer the way plenty of other teams did. The front office understood that if they were going to make a real run at James, they needed to give him a reason beyond nostalgia. So, they went out and got Giannis. That trade changed everything about how the league viewed Miami's chances. Before the Antetokounmpo deal, the Heat were considered a middling threat. The Bam Adebayo era of noble, tough, well-coached basketball that rarely broke through in the postseason. After the trade, they were suddenly a legitimate contender and a team with a real basketball case to make to a player of James's caliber. That's the case Anthony Chang laid out clearly. The relationship between James and the Heat, which was reportedly frosty for years after his initial departure, has warmed considerably. Reporting has described how the Miami Heat would welcome a LeBron return, as James and the Miami Heat now have a strong relationship, whatever bad blood existed after he first left for Cleveland the second time. It isn't sitting between him and the organization the way it once did, and the on-court fit isn't just nostalgia, dressed up as basketball logic. James, even at 41 years old, is still an elite table setter. Reports describing his potential role in Miami point to something specific. He could slot in at point guard, running an offense flanked by Giannis and Bam Adebayo doing the physical work in the paint. One outlet described it directly. The Heat could be a clean on-court fit for James, with Antetokounmpo and Adebayo's front court absorbing much of the physical burden he carried during his prime. That's the pitch in a single sentence. Let James do what he still does better than almost anyone. See the floor, deliver the ball, controlled tempo, and let two younger, more explosive bodies handle the punishment down low. There's also the money. The Heat aren't just making an emotional appeal here. They can actually back it financially in a way some of James's other suitors can't. According to ESPN's Brian Windhorst and Bobby Marks, the Heat can offer James a higher salary than other reported suitors because Miami is substantially under the first apron hard cap. Bobby Marks laid out the specific mechanics. Miami has at least 2 open roster spots and sits $10.5 million below the first apron. If James signs for a modest $7 million, the Heat could still add a 14th roster player and stay under the threshold. Then there's the detail that keeps coming up in every single insider report on this saga. Whether it's Windhorst or Chirania, Florida doesn't tax income. It sounds almost too simple to matter at this stage of a legendary career, but insiders keep bringing it up unprompted, which tells you it's part of the real calculation happening behind closed doors. So that's the background. A player who already won a title in Miami once. A front office that upgraded its roster specifically with him in mind. A warming relationship with the man running the organization. Real financial flexibility, and a state that lets him keep more of whatever he signs for. That's not a long shot pitch. That's a genuine, stacked case. Which is exactly why Curry, sitting in the Bay Area, has reason to be nervous. While Miami was busy remaking its roster around Giannis, Golden State was making its own quiet, deliberate moves, and Curry was the one steering the ship in public. The first domino fell before free agency even opened. Draymond Green, Curry's longtime running mate, made a decision that had nothing to do with his own paycheck and everything to do with clearing room for somebody else. Draymond Green declined his $27.7 million player option specifically to help give the Warriors more financial freedom to pursue James. That's not a subtle gesture. That's a player walking away from guaranteed money in his 30s because he believes the payoff, a shot at pairing his 2 closest championship-era partners under one roof, is worth more than the security. Once that move became public, the rumors took off. It became, in the words of one outlet, a mouth-watering potential Curry-James team-up that began to titillate the basketball world late last month. And Curry didn't shy away from feeding it. He's talked about James constantly with reporters, on golf courses, in press conferences, at media availabilities he clearly knew were going to be dominated by one topic. His pitch, when he's laid it out publicly, has been strikingly simple. Curry described it directly. The offer is a chance to play good basketball around people who know how to play the game, with the goal of raising the floor and the competitiveness of the whole group. He's thrown in the lifestyle stuff too, mentioning the Bay's weather and its golf courses. Clearly aware James enjoys both, he's also leaned on shared history, invoking the run, the two of them had together, representing Team USA. That shared history is worth sitting with for a second, because it's the emotional core of the entire Warriors pitch. For nearly 20 years, James and Curry were defined by opposition. For nearly 2 decades, LeBron James and Stephen Curry have spent more time trying to beat each other than playing together. They met in 4 consecutive NBA Finals. They became the faces of 2 rival championship eras. That changed once, briefly, at the Paris Olympics, when the two shared a locker room instead of standing across from each other in a series. The Olympic run mattered more than a footnote here. It's become the emotional proof of concept for this entire recruiting pitch. Team USA won gold, beating France in the final, with Curry scoring 24 points in the deciding game. And afterward, James didn't hide how much he enjoyed the experience. He described playing alongside Curry as everything and more, exceeding whatever expectations he walked in with. That's not just a nice quote, that's James on record saying the version of basketball where he and Curry are teammates instead of opponents is one he genuinely wants more of. Golden State's front office understood the value of that emotional case and tried to build a roster around it. Reporting from ESPN's Shams Charania added a wrinkle, though the Warriors reportedly aren't viewed as a true frontrunner unless they can also land Anthony Davis in a trade from the Washington Wizards, which would turn a simple 2-star pairing into a 4-man group including Green and Davis. The problem is that trade isn't simple. It would require sending Jimmy Butler to Washington, and the Wizards have reportedly been hesitant to move Davis at all, even with the Warriors said to be willing to offer multiple first-round picks alongside Butler. There's also a cap problem that doesn't go away, no matter how much emotional momentum Golden State builds. Even after Green opted out, the Warriors' payroll still sits above $177 million, which makes using the mid-level exception on James anything but simple. Green's sacrifice bought flexibility, not a blank check. The front office is still threading a needle, and yet momentum has genuinely shifted in Golden State's direction at points during this process. One report tracking odds across the league noted the Warriors climbing to 22%, just ahead of the Heat's 21%, with Cleveland still holding a clear lead at 45%. That's not a coronation, that's a dogfight, and the numbers keep moving depending on which insider talked to which source that week. Through all of it, Curry has stayed personally engaged, rather than delegating the recruiting pitch to the front office. He's revealed that he stayed in contact with James throughout free agency, describing several one-on-one conversations during the process. He even took his pitch to national television, telling Good Morning America that the Bay knows how to win, has great weather, has golf James is known to enjoy, and has a shared history built on real battles and real basketball. It's about as direct a recruiting pitch as an active superstar can make on camera without technically tampering. But Curry has also been careful, in nearly every interview, to insert the same caveat. He's repeated variations of it constantly. It's not up to him. It's James's decision and James alone. Curry has said if a place calls him and tells him it wants him, teams move mountains to make it happen. And right now, he's simply hoping Golden State is the one making that call. While Curry was working the phones and the cameras from the West Coast, Miami's pitch kept building momentum of its own. Quietly at first, then very publicly. The single biggest shift came from inside Miami's own locker room. Giannis, freshly traded there and clearly aware of what his arrival could mean for recruiting, didn't stay neutral. Shams Charania relayed exactly how strong that pull is, describing multiple layers to it. Riley as a draw, Spoelstra as a draw, and genuine respect between James and Bam Adebayo built through their shared Team USA experience. Charania added that Giannis would want LeBron James in Miami as well. And then there's no state income tax. Plus, James already knows the city from his years there. Windhorst backed that red up from a different angle. He described Riley's plain comment at the Giannis introductory presser as a clear signal of intent, saying the fact Riley is using this exact opportunity to appeal to LeBron shows how badly the Heat want him. Windhorst also pointed out something that's easy to miss in the back and forth of the rumor mill. If James wants to play the style of basketball where the ball runs through him, Miami might genuinely be the best fit of anyone chasing him. Better even than staying out west. Mark Stein weighed in too, and his read was even more pointed. Speaking on a Bleacher Report livestream, Stein said flatly that based on actual reporting, the real shortlist comes down to Cleveland, Miami, and Philadelphia. He went further, noting that James appears to be taking Eastern Conference destinations far more seriously than almost anyone around the league expected just 2 weeks earlier. That's a notable detail because it suggests the Warriors' chase, as loud and emotionally compelling as Curry has made it, might not be where the real decision is trending. A Western Conference executive gave Front Office Sports a slightly different framing, suggesting the real choice may come down to just Cleveland or Golden State. That's the maddening part of this entire saga. Every insider seems to have a slightly different shortlist, and none of them fully agree on where Miami actually ranks. Still, Miami kept building its case in ways that had nothing to do with rumors, and everything to do with actual roster construction. The front office reportedly has a contingency plan already lined up, regardless of how the James decision goes. Heavy Sean Devaney reported the Heat plan to stay aggressive even if they land James, adding DeMar DeRozan to the mix as well. Devaney described it directly, saying to expect the Heat, with Antetokounmpo in tow, to stay aggressive if they wind up winning the LeBron sweepstakes, with DeRozan also in their sights. That's a franchise not just hoping to land its target, but actively planning what the roster looks like the morning after it happens. The financial mechanics back up how serious that plan is. Even hard-capped at the first apron, the Heat reportedly have roughly $10 million available to add 2 players and get to a full roster of 14 for the coming season. That's tight, but it's workable, especially if James is willing to take less than max value for a shot at another ring, in a city he already has history in. And Miami has a backup plan if the James pursuit falls through entirely. Reports suggest DeRozan himself could become a fallback option regardless of the outcome. Described as a 17-year veteran willing to take a discounted deal for a real shot at his first championship. That's the mark of a front office playing chess, 2 moves ahead, not sitting around waiting on a single phone call. There's also a human wrinkle that's kept fueling speculation from unexpected corners. Patrick Beverley, a former teammate of James's, dropped what's been described as a cryptic hint about the decision, timed right around a reported announcement window that ESPN's Dave McMenamin had flagged publicly. Beverley didn't confirm anything outright, but the timing alone was enough to send another wave of speculation through NBA media, with outlets noting that if his hint proves accurate, the Heat won't have to wait much longer for their answer. What makes Miami's case genuinely different from every other suitor isn't just the roster or the tax benefits, or even Riley's public recruiting stunt at the Giannis press conference. It's the fact that James has already lived this exact story once before, on the same court, under many of the same lights, and it worked out about as well as any stretch of his career possibly could have. Reporters keep circling back to the same point. A return to Miami wouldn't be starting something new. It would be closing a loop he opened himself over a decade ago, this time with an MVP frontcourt waiting for him, instead of the young core he had to help build from scratch. That's the leverage Miami is playing with. And it's exactly why every time Curry gets asked about James joining Golden State, the follow-up question from reporters is almost always the same. What happens if he picks Miami instead? So where does all of this actually leave things? James still hasn't made a decision, and by all accounts, he's in no rush to make one. Shams Charania relayed directly through James's agent, Rich Paul, that there's no real timetable on any of this. Charania described the situation plainly during an appearance discussing the free agency saga, saying the focus remains locked on 3 teams, Cleveland, Miami, and Philadelphia, while other reporters, like Stein, have echoed that same shortlist almost word for word. Brian Windhorst has gone even further, describing just how airtight James keeps his decision-making process. He pointed back to history, noting that even Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh reportedly got barely 12 hours of notice before James's move to Miami the first time around. Windhorst's read is that nobody outside James's tightest circle actually knows anything real right now. Everyone else is just working off vibes. That uncertainty hasn't stopped Curry from continuing to make his case anyway. Even away from basketball entirely, the questions follow him. At a golf event that included Ray Allen and Charles Barkley, reporters caught up with Curry walking between shots and asked him, again, about the Warriors' pursuit. His response was brief this time, a far cry from the extended, hopeful answers he'd given weeks earlier. It's the kind of shift that tells its own story. A superstar who spent an entire summer publicly recruiting a rival, now sounding a little more resigned to the reality that this decision was never his to make. And the odds keep shifting under everyone's feet in real time. Reports have shown the Warriors briefly overtaking the Heat for second place in aggregate market projections, only for Miami to reassert itself days later, once Riley's comments and Giannis's public endorsement made headlines again. Cleveland, through all of it, has remained the steadiest favorite, sitting comfortably ahead of both Golden State and Miami. In nearly every version of these projections that circulated, that's worth sitting with the two most emotionally loaded storylines in this entire saga. Curry's recruiting pitch and Miami's nostalgic reunion case might both end up losing out to the quiet, steady presence of the team James has already returned to once before. There's a genuinely human layer sitting underneath all of the market percentages and cap sheet arithmetic too. This is James's 24th season on the horizon. He's 41 years old, coming off a year where he still averaged nearly 21 points and over 7 assists a game, numbers that remind everyone exactly why 4 separate franchises are rearranging their entire offseasons around the possibility of adding him. That's not a player clinging to relevance. That's a player good enough still that Pat Riley stood at a press conference for another star entirely and used the moment to talk about him instead. And that's really the story sitting at the center of all this noise. Not one franchise desperately overselling itself to a fading star, but several genuinely elite organizations rearranging real basketball plans around the idea that James still has something left to give, and that whichever team lands him walks away with a legitimate title contender overnight. Curry knows that better than almost anyone in the league. He's shared a floor with James at the Olympics. He's spent nearly 2 decades measuring himself against him in the sport's biggest moments. And now he's spent an entire summer trying to talk him into one final act together. Fully aware that Miami, armed with Giannis, Riley's history with James, and a tax code that doesn't touch a single dollar of whatever contract gets signed, might beat him to it. Nobody outside James's inner circle knows how this ends. Not Curry, not Riley, not the insiders posting conflicting shortlists every few days. What's clear is that Miami built a legitimate case, Golden State built an emotional one, and Cleveland never stopped being the quiet favorite. Through all the noise surrounding both, James will make the call when he's ready, on his own terms, the same way he always has. And whichever locker room he walks into next, the other two are going to spend the rest of the season wondering